some of the Zen masters, they can be proper crazy, to coin a phrase. I had a story when I was staying up in Dharamsala, and there was a Tibetan Buddhist monk doing a talk on enlightenment, and a Zen master basically got on stage and started hitting him with his walking stick and calling him a liar. Hilarious. But the guy was in the moment, you see, and that was a spontaneous action. And perhaps the Tibetan monk was talking a load of nonsense. And you also, a lot of the gurus don't like each other, and a lot of the schools don't like each other. There's always a little bit of ego and a bit of competitiveness and judgment, because just because somebody's enlightened or had a satori doesn't mean they haven't lost all of their conditioning. And if they're talking to you, you're basically talking to their personality. Because when you're in a state of satori, there's just emptiness, there's nothingness. There's no one to know anything. So if you think, is my teacher enlightened, if he's actually just talking, then at that moment, no, he's not enlightened, he's just talking to you. And the way he talks to you will be dependent upon your teacher's conditioning. You see, some teachers have a terrible personality, but then they'll be in satori, and you can see that they're in satori. And then when they come out of satori, their ego and their personality comes back, their conditioning, and they're back to being a grumpy old git sometimes. Dennis, my Dharma teacher, went to see a gentleman called Ramesh Balsekar, who was a Advaita master, and his teacher was Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. And if you look in this guy's eyes, he's clearly a very special man. And I think he was probably one of the most enlightened teachers that was around in India in his day. He died in the 1980s, I believe. He used to throw things at people, rant and rave, and smash his fist on the table. Because that was his job. The job of a real teacher is not to build your ego up, it's to show you your ego. And he showed a lot of people their egos when they went to see him, thinking they were clever and worked everything out, and he smashed them down and sent them away. He's a true teacher. And Dennis, when he went to meet Ramesh Balsekar wasn't nice to him at all. But that's what Dennis needed at the time. He actually thought he was pretty special, and Ramesh just brought him down a peg or two. He didn't do it particularly nicely, but it had a positive effect. Tough love. And also, Vivekananda, who's a famous teacher in Nepal, in Lumbini, he's not known for being nice, but he is known for being a very good Dharma teacher. So, some people don't have a particularly large ego, and maybe the teacher can relax a little bit and be a little bit more playful. Other students want to own their teacher and get commended for their insights, and then these teachers, if he's a good teacher, will slap these people around verbally and probably even send them away. But what I've noticed about a lot of the real teachers, they didn't entertain disciples. So if you went to see Ramesh Balsekar, if you hadn't got the message within a week, he'd just call you an idiot and send you away. He wasn't interested in being worshipped. He wasn't interested in people bowing to him. Didn't need that. Neither did Nisargadatta Maharaj. And a lot of the problems with these modern Western gurus is they've really gone in for the full idolatry and being worshipped by their students, and this isn't good for the teacher and it isn't good for the students. You go to a person for their teaching, you learn what you can, and you go away and practice. You don't hang around and hope that somehow your teacher will enlighten you, or you'll become enlightened just by merely sitting in their presence. You have to do some work yourself. And that's putting too much expectation on the teacher to enlighten you. That's asking a lot. But some are willing to step up and say they can do that. And if we look at Osho Rajneesh, 96 Rolls Royces. I come from Yorkshire. I couldn't even be bothered to own one Rolls Royce, you know. I'd probably sell it and buy a Ford Mondeo. I'm just not interested in status symbols, but that's my working class conditioning. That's the way I am anyway. Whereas Osho, maybe he was enlightened, maybe he wasn't, I don't know. He did a very good snake impression with his eyes by using his breath. And maybe it was his conditioning to see spiritual success as having 96 Rolls Royces. I don't know. Or maybe he argued that why shouldn't he have 96 Rolls Royces? But me personally, from my conditioning, would be like, well, I'm going to sell them all. I've got a load of money anyway, and I'm going to give that money to charity instead and build a hospital and feed some hungry kids. But that's my conditioning. And I would be like that anyway. So to think that your teacher then suddenly has a satori and becomes a perfect human being all the time, that's a mistake to think that, because they are still human beings. The difference is they've got an insight into reality and have realized that we're not our minds. So they've kind of got some freedom in a way. So, are spiritual teachers always nice? The answer is no. Sometimes they have to be fierce, and sometimes they can be very gentle and very kind and very compassionate. But your teacher, if he is genuinely in the moment, will be whatever he or she needs to be. And that could be Mr. Nice, or it could be Mr. Nasty. The purpose is to get through your ego. And sometimes that's not very pleasant.